Okay, so Purim is coming. It's already Rosh Chodesh. In the past, we've had shiurim on the story of Purim, about how Esther was living with two husbands simultaneously, how she was able to voluntarily walk into Achashverosh's room to save the Yidden, the Chayra, that was active adultery. We had a long shir about that. We had a shir last year about Shalach Manas, all the ins and outs of Shalach Manas, the reasons behind it, and the nafkiminas in halacha. And today we're going to discuss something about the reading of the Megilah itself. We know we read the Megilah by night and we read the Megilah by day. If someone learns the Mishnayos and Masechta Megilah, they will come across the Mishnah which says you have to read Megilah by day. In Daf Chaf, in Masechta Megilah, the Mishnah lists a whole list of mitzvahs that day mitzvahs can be done throughout the entire day, and Megilah is one of them. The Mishnah does not speak about the nighttime Megilah. It's actually not found in the Mishnayos. What's found in the Mishnayos is only the mention of Megilah of the day. But in number one, we have a statement in Megilah of Daf Daled from Rabbi Shua ben Levi. So this is not recorded in the Mishnah. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is not officially a Tana, unofficially a Tana, but either way, this statement of his is recorded in the Gemara. We're just beginning. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Chayev Adam likros esa Megilah balayla. One is chayev to read the Megilah at night, v'lishanoisa b'yom, and repeat it by day. Now, the fact that you're chayev to read by day is a Mishnah. That's not the chiddush of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. His chiddush is you're chayev to read at night. That's how you would read the Gemara. His chiddush is you're chayev to read at night, because that's not found in the Mishnah. What's found in the Mishnah later in the Masechta is only by day. He brings a pasuk, Shneimar. It says in Tilim, Elokai, my God, Ekra Yoima, I call by day, V'loi Sana, and you don't answer. V'layla, and even at night, V'loi Dumya li, I'm not silent. In other words, I call by day and by night. What does this pasuk have to do with Megillah Esther? Kapitel Chafez, yeah. So Rashi on the Gemara Megillah says, look in Yuma, in Masechta Yuma, the Gemara says there that this parak in Tilim refers to Esther. So, now Rashi does write on the side of the Gemara like this. You know why you have to read twice, by day and by night? Rashi's words are Zeichel L'nes, remembering the miracle, because during the time of distress we cried by day and by night. Since we cried by day and by night at the time of the story, so therefore we have to celebrate by reading by day and by night. So that's what, according to Rashi, so when we quote this pasuk from Tilim Perek Chav Beis, are we just proving that the Yidden cried by day and by night, and therefore we say to commemorate that we read by day and by night? Or is the pasuk actually referring to the reading of the Megillah by day and by night? Right, Rashi doesn't clearly tell me that, right? I'm just pointing out there's two ways of understanding this. There won't be much of a difference for today's discussion, but one way is that the pasuk is telling me to read the Megillah by day and by night. And that, because that kapitel is referring to Esther. Another way is, no, the pasuk is telling me that Esther was crying, or the Jews were crying by day and by night. And to commemorate that, we read by day and by night. Okay, that's something to think about. Either way, though, this is Rabbi Shua ben Levi's source to the din. You got to read by night, and l'shanois b'yom, to repeat it by day. Now, l'shanois is a strange expression. Why didn't Rabbi Shua ben Levi say you're chayiv to read the Megillah by night and by day? What's his l'shanois? In fact, the Gemara says, Savr Mina, we're in the fourth line of number one. Originally, when the students heard this, they misunderstood what L'shanoisa means. L'mikarya balayla. They thought it meant to read at night. U'lemisnem masnisin didah b'yamama. And by day to read the Mishnayos. They thought L'shanoisa means to read the Mishnayos. They thought you read the Megillah at night, and when Rabbi Shua ben Levi said L'shnoisa means you take out a Masechta Megillah, the Mishnayos, and you read the Mishnah by day. That's what they thought he meant from his strange choice of wording L'shnoisa. Now, off the bat, you're all going to ask, how could they have thought that? There's a Mishnah Masechta Megilah in Daf Chof where it says clearly you have to read Megilah by day. The Mishnah doesn't speak of night; it only speaks of day. The students of the yeshiva definitely knew that Mishnah, right? And they hear their teacher Rabbi Shua ben Levi say that you have to read at night. How could it have entered their mind that they have to read at night and not by day? In the Mishnah, it's just the opposite. There's no mention of reading at night; it's only a mention of day. So, the simple approach of many Achronim is they thought you have to do both. The students thought that by day you have to read the Megillah for sure. You also have to learn the Mishnayos. In other words, they thought like this. After learning Masechta Megillah, you come out with an understanding you have to read Megillah by day, and that's it. Came Rabbi Shua ben Levi and added two things. You should know you have to read by night. And also by day, you also have to learn the Mishnayos. That's what they thought was going on. That's the approach of this Hashemis mentions that, and others. The Shagas Arya in his Sefer Tudei Even on Megillah says a different approach. He says the students thought that you know who has to read the Megillah by day? The Amaratsim, those that are not able to learn. They thought that of course there's a Mishnayos that says you have to read Megillah by day. Who's that an instruction for? Those that's the best they can do. They could read the Psukim and that's it. But those that are able to study and learn, they would have to learn Mishnah by day. That's how the Shagasari explains the approach of these students. It actually reminds me of a story. There was a Chassidic Rebbe, Reb Moshe of Savron. And this Reb Moshe was visiting old shtetl. And in the shtetl, there were a group of Tehillim Zogers, ordinary, simple fellows, simple folk. Every day would come, and there was a whole committee of this Tehillim group, and there were rules and ordinances of how to be part of the group. And there were a few scholars that were involved as well. And one of them brought a copy of their rules and regulations, their handbook, to the visiting Rebbe of Moshe of Savron. And the scholar asked Moshe Savron, "No, what do you think about this?" In the room at the time was a third person, who was a scholar, not a chassid, and he started laughing at the first scholar and says, "You're part of this Chevra Tehillim? Tehillim are for those that can't learn, but what are you doing there? What are you doing there? What are you wasting your time with Tehillim?" So the first scholar who was involved in the Tehillim said, "What do you mean?" It's a medrash in Yalkut Shemaini. It says David HaMelech asked God, "Yehiratzon milfanecha," it should be your will that anyone that says Tehillim should be considered like they learned Negoyim and Oilus, the hardest Mishnayos. Negoyim is Saras and Oilus is Tumas Meis in a tent. It should be as if it should be considered like they learned. By the way, some say, you know why David said it should be like Negoyim? Just like by Tzaras, the Kohen doesn't have to understand why it's Tomei or Torah. He can have the Rav next to him telling him, say Tomei, say Torah, and the words of the Kohen creates the fact. So David says, so too by Tehillim, whether someone understands, he doesn't understand, the words itself should take an effect. But Al Kapanim, the Medrash and the Yalkut Shemaini says, David asked, someone who says Tehillim, it should be just like he learned the hardest sugyas of Shas. So it's not a trivial thing to say Tehillim. So the Misnagid says back, no, I heard from a great Gadol, and it was Reb Chaim of Volozhin, the Vilna Gaon's greatest student. Reb Chaim of Volozhin writes that, Tehillim is second best. Torah is greater. If you're able to learn, learn. If you can't, you say Tehillim. And Chaim Volozhin said, David asked that it should be considered anyone that says Tehillim like he was Isaac and Negoyim and Oilus. David asked, but God said no. Just because David asked doesn't mean he was answered. So Reb Moshe, the Rebbe that was there, said, whoa. So the Misnagid says, no, there's another Gemara that says the same thing. In the end of the first parak of Baba Basra, the Gemara brings a brayso of how many people historically, their bodies were never affected by worms after death. And there's Avram, Yitzchak, and Yankov, Moshe, Aaron, Miriam, all that died b'neshika with the kiss of Hashem. And the second opinion, there's Binyamin, the second opinion mentions David. Because David said in Tehillim, Af besore yishkoin lovetach, My flesh should rest in tranquility, security. And the Gemara says the Tanakama doesn't count David. David was asking. David asked. So Chaim Volozhiner said, just like there, David asked and wasn't answered. So too in the Medrash by Tehillim, David asked. Whoever says Tehillim should be like he learned the greatest parts of Torah. But he asked, but who said it was given to him? So the Moshe Savron said, no, that's not the Peshat in the Gemara in Baba Basra. The Gemara in Baba Basra says the reason that the Tanakama doesn't count David as those whose bodies never rotted is because the Tanakama is only counting those that didn't have to ask for it. David had to ask, but of course, once he asked, he would answer it. That's the Pshat in the Gemara Baba Basra. Of course, if David asked, he was answered. And therefore, by the Tehillim, if David asked that the Tehillim should be considered like someone learned in the Goyim and Oilers, you can be sure God answered him.
You can say it even better. The fact that David asked, we know he got answered. It's 100% sure. The other ones is we're deducing. We're saying this one's a big tzaddik. David asked. It's very sure.
They merited.
Why?
They didn't ask.
By Binyamin, there's a pasuk that says, Yishka in Loveta Cholov.
Okay, so Binyamin.
No, but Binyamin is mentioned.
Sure.
No, Binyamin is mentioned, even though there's a pasuk not about him asking, but saying as a fact. And we don't mention David. So the simple reading is David asked, but wasn't answered. It says Moshe Savron, no. Of course David was answered. But since he had to ask, so the Tanakhama doesn't mention him. But this is it's a well-known story. The point is, though, the Shagasariya writes that this was a similar thought process the Bachrim had over here. Of course, the Mishnah Megillah says you have to read Megillah by day. Yeah, that's for the Amaratzim. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says if you're able to learn, you got to learn. If you're able to learn, you got to learn. Anyhow, the Gemara continues. That's what the Bachrim thought, or the students thought. So the Amar Luhu Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah told them, you got it all wrong. I heard from B'chi Barabba. Kagoin the Amar Inshi. People use the following expression. Ever parshasa let me go through this parsha, ve'esnaya, and let me repeat it. The word l'shanoisa doesn't have to mean Mishnah, it can mean to repeat, like Mishnah Torah to repeat. All Rabbi Shua ben Levi meant was you read it at night and repeat the Megillah by day. He never meant the Mishnayos, that's not what the word meant. And Rabbi Shua ben Levi was just saying that, by the way, you know that you read it by day, that's round two, because you have to read it by night earlier. That's it. Says the Gemara, Itmar Nami was also told, Amar Abchelba, Amar Ula Bira, said Ula from Bira, Chayev Adam, you're Chayev to read the Megillah at night, and L'Shanoi Sabiyim to repeat it by day. Shenemar, he learns from a different pasuk in Tehillim, Laman Yizamercha Chavad, in order that my honor, my soul should sing to you, V'lo Yidam should not be silent, and V'lo Yidam is coming to add night, Hashem Alekai Lo'elam Eideka. So that pasuk, Rashi in the Gemara says, look in a certain medrash, that pasuk, that also that kapitel refers to the Purim story. And from this pasuk you see that my honor has to sing to you, plus v'lo yidam, the day and the night. This is the Gemara. So, what we're going to analyze is the following. The fact is there are two obligations to read the Megillah. This din of Rabbi Shua ben Levi is paskend everywhere. The Rif, the Rambam, the Rosh, everybody, nobody argues on this halacha of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. It's a halacha, you have to read by night, you have to read by day. We pointed out, if you look at the Mishnayos, you wouldn't know this. You would only know you have to read by day. There's no mention of Megillah, night Megillah in the Mishnayos. Rabbi Shua ben Levi mentioned it. But its fact is coded in the halacha. And the question is, which of the two Megillahs is actually the primary? If one would have to have a choice to choose one over the other, which Megillah is the primary Megillah? And we begin with the following. Look at number 4. Is a well-known Taisus in Megillah Daf Dalet. He says, Chayev Adam likres the Megillah, is quoting the statement of Yeshua by night and repeated by day. Oy Meri, says the Ri. Now we're going to see that the Ri was Rashi's great-grandson. Rashi had 3 daughters, maybe 4, but he had a daughter, Yocheved, who married Rab Meir, Rashi's son-in-law, Rab Meir. And Rab Meir and Yocheved had 3 sons. There was Shmuel ben Meir, the Rashbam. He's going to feature here too. There was a brother, Reb Yitzchak ben Meir. He passed away young. And there was a younger brother, Reb Yankiv, Rabenu Tam. They had a sister, Miriam, who had a son called Reb Yitzchak, the famous Ri. The Ri and the Rabenu Tam are the greatest of the Baalei Tosfos. There's a letter of the Rosh who says that whenever Ri or Rabenu Tam argue in the Rambam, we follow Ri and Rabenu Tam because they were greater, they were older, and they were also greater b'chochma. That's what the Rosh writes. But either way, this din Tosfos introduces in the name of the Ri. All the other Rishonim quote it in the name of Rabenu Tam. Everyone's going to quote it in the name of Rabenu Tam, except for the way it's in Tosfos itself in Megilah, it says the Ri. So some say when it says Ri here, it's actually meant to stand for Rabenu Yaakov. Almost always Ri is Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabenu Tam's nephew, but here it may actually be Rabbi Yaakov. Now, since when is Rabenu Tam referred to as Reish Yud? Almost never. But in this particular instance, you're going to see that all the other Rishonim quoted in the name of Rabenu Tam. Either way, what is it? So, Omer Ri, Afal Gav, even though the Mevarach Zman Balayla, you make Shehecheyanu at night. Chayzu Mevarach Oiseh B'yom, you have to repeat it by day. You have to make Shehecheyanu by day. In other words, like this. We know when it comes to lighting Hanukkah candles, the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos writes very clear that the first night you make 3 brachas, Asher Kedishanu, Lahadlik, Sha'asa Nisim, and Shehecheyanu, and the Gemara says from then on you drop it. You drop the Shehecheyanu. When it comes to the Megilah, the Gemara also says there are 3 brachas you have to make. Asher Kedishanu, Sha'asa Nisim Shehecheyanu. And the Gemara doesn't say that by day you drop one of them. By Chanukah it says the first night you make 3, from then on you make 2, you drop one, you drop the Shehecheyanu. That's in Masechta Shabbos about Chanukah. In Masechta Megilah it speaks about Megilah, it says there are 3 brachas on the Megilah, and it doesn't say, you should know that's only the first time by night, but the second time you drop. It doesn't say that. So therefore Tosfos Taka says, you don't drop the Shehecheyanu by day, you say it again. Even though you made Zman Balayla, Chayzim Mevarach, you say it again by day. Why? The Iker Pesumei Nisa have a Bekriya Diyamama. We know when it comes to Chanukah and Purim, a crucial element of the mitzvah is Pesumei Nisa, to publicize the miracle. That's why you're supposed to read Megilah with the minyan, and the bigger the minyan, the better. B'rav am, and more people, more Pesumei Nisa. Says Tosfos, Iker Pesumei Nisa. Do you know when the main publicizing is? It's Bekriya Diyamama, the reading by day. Now Tosfos doesn't say why. Why is it that the reading by day publicized the miracle more than night? Maybe fakir, maybe at night everyone's dressed up, there's more people there. At night people are in a good mood, right? By day people are getting antsy already. By night everyone's excited, unless it's a fast. Then no one's interested at the night Megillah. But this year, Baruch Hashem, it's not going to be after a fast, so everyone's excited by the night Megillah. So Tosfos doesn't say why, he says a fact. If you look in the Rosh, who's part of the Baalei Tosfos, the Rosh in his commentary Megilah gives a reason. All the other mitzvahs of Purim, Shalach Monas has to be by day. The Suda needs to be by day. Matanas Lev Yoinim by day. If you do these mitzvahs at night, you're not Yotzeh. Which means all the mitzvahs are being done by day. Now, all those mitzvahs are publicizing the miracle. So the miracle, the vibe of Purim is by day. That's when the miracle is much more palpable and apparent, and people are talking about it, doing mitzvahs based on that. And therefore, because in the air there's more Pesumei Nisa, so automatically the Megillah will piggyback on that, and it's just a greater reading of the Megillah because of all the other mitzvahs. Now Tosfos doesn't say that. It could be it's what he means. Fine. But the main chiddush of Tosfos is not the fact that there's more Pesumei Nisa by day. The main thing is, that's stage 1. Stage 1 is accept the fact that by day there's more publicity. Stage 2 is that therefore you make another Shehecheyanu. That's a big jump. I already did the mitzvah at night, but since you're doing it in a greater fashion, it warrants a new Shehecheyanu. It's a new mitzvah. You make a Shehecheyanu the first time you do a mitzvah. By Chanukah Licht, why don't we say that every night you're adding a candle so the mitzvah is growing, and therefore every night a Shehecheyanu say that? It's the same Chanukah Licht. Tosfos, though, accepts 2 things. Number 1, he says for a fact, the reading by day has more Pesumei Nisa. Number 2, therefore you make Shehecheyanu. Okay. Tosfos still wants to bring a few proofs. So Quran Nami Masru. Look at the pasuk Rabbi Shua ben Levi quotes. It says, "V'laylo v'lo dumili." I call to you by day, and at night I'm not silent. You know what that means? The main calling is by day. And also at night, I won't be quiet. Even though I'm reading by day, chayiv likros b'layla, you also have to read at night. That's funny. Rabbi Shua ben Levi kind of worded it the other way. You're chayiv to read at night and repeat it by day. If you take Rabbi Shua ben Levi's words of face value, which is the main reading, by night or by day?
By night.
It sounds like by night. You have to read at night and repeat. You know, when you have a shower, you have to rinse and repeat, right? Which is the main washing of the hair, the first or the second? I don't know. But we're going to see Rabbi Yosef Engel soon is going to introduce us to a Reikeach. Rabbi Lozer Reikeach, the great Kabbalist from Germany. And Rabbi Lozer Reikeach actually holds the main reading is night. The exact opposite of Tosfos. And but Tosfos himself says, no, the main reading of the day. And he says, the Pasuk Rabbi Shua ben Levi marshals is, I call by day. And also at night, I'm not quiet. Meaning the night is tafel, is secondary to the reading of the day. Rabbi Shua ben Levi's words are, you have to read at night and repeat it by day. Okay. But it happens to be, the repetition is actually the main one.
Why is in so many other places we look to find when the actual miracle occurred, and then we base it here? Nobody's talking about that yet.
The miracle occurred, so it happened. Well, here it's not so pashut. No, the feast happened by day, but Esther thought that she would get the pardon at night when she's together with Achashverosh. There's a big discussion if that actually happened or if she succeeded during the day meal. The Ben Ish Chai famously learns Esther thought she was going to have to go inside Achashverosh's room at night willingly, and then she would become usher to her husband. That's why she says, V'chasher avadati. She tells Mordechai, for the last 5 years I was coerced so I can go back to you, but now I'm walking in on my own volition. The Ben Ish Chai writes, that's what Esther thought was going to happen. But in the end, she succeeded just by the feast, by day. She never had to go in willingly at night, and therefore she remained permitted to Mordechai. So it's not even clear when the actual happened, if it happened at night with him or it happened by the feast by day. So we can't, right. When it comes to Yetzias Mitzrayim, remembering by the fact that that was Noded Shnas HaMelech, fine, the Toikfish on Nesi Krishnas, yeah, but that was just a preparation, that was a hechsher. Ultimately, it was by the actual salvation happened later. But you're right, I hear. That's a good point. Listen, when it comes to what?
We don't calculate hours, we calculate days. It's the same Gemara. We don't calculate hours, we calculate days.
What do you mean?
We don't go by the hour, we go by the day, by the Zman.
No, when it comes to Yetzias Mitzrayim, we definitely say whether there's a chiv to be soimer gula tefillah at night, or according to Chachamim, you don't have to mention Mitzrayim b'chlal at night, only according to Ben Zayma. And that's based on the fact that Parah gave us reshus to leave at night, but Hashem said you can't leave. Lo yiseitzu ish until morning. And the Gemara discusses in Brachos a few times that on the one hand we were allowed to leave at night, but it only happened by day. And there's halachic nafkaminas of when you have to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, depending on when the redemption happened. So that could be because B'layla Ahu. That one.
The post going to say that the reason we say Shehecheyanu during the day, so we should be mechavim for those mitzvahs.
Oh, okay. We're gonna get.
There's a reason for it.
But we're gonna. We'll get there. And we're gonna see if that's how much weight that argument has. Al Kaponim Tosfos holds the Ikar is, but he continues. Says Tosfos, we're number 4, second to last line. V'ikar hava b'yamama kiven shiz kirei akasav tchil. The pasuk says first I call by day. That's the Ikar. The Gam continues Tosfos, Ikar hasuda b'yamamahu. The meal has to be by day, like we say later on. Im achla, but if you eat the meal the night before, you're not yaitze. That means the Ikar eating is when? By day. So if the main suda, the main celebration is by day, then you could assume the main reading of the miracle is by day. And it continues, V'hachi nami mashma, his last raya, Midichsiv nizkarim v'nasim. It says, Vayomim ha'ela nizkarim v'nasim. Nizkarim means you have to recall the miracle by reading Megilah. Nasim means to do the actual mitzvahs, Mishloach Manos, Matanos Levyanim, etc. The Gemara says a few times in the Masechta, Ve'itkish schira la'asiyah, that I compare remembering to doing, and for different halachas. So Tosfos says, once the Gemara says you compare the two, so I'll tell you the following. This is Tosfos' own chiddush. Ma ikar asiyah b'yamama. Just like when it comes to the actions, the main thing is by day, right? If you do Shalchmos night before, it doesn't work. So too when it comes to Zechira. Now that's Tosfos' own. The Gemara says we compare the reading of the Megillah to the other mitzvahs. Tosfos therefore says, so then I'll tell you, if the other mitzvahs, their existence is by day, then so too the Megillah, the main thing is by day. This is Tosfos. And this din of the Ri, or Rabenu Tam, is quoted by many of the Ashkenazic Rishonim. But it's disputed by the Rambam. Look at the Rambam on the top of the page in number 2. The Rambam says, in Hilchos Megillah, number 2, that there are 3 brachas that you make. And he says the third one is Shehecheyanu. Ubeyoim, and by day, says the Rambam, Einoi choyzu mevarach Shehecheyanu. You don't say Shehecheyanu again by day. You don't repeat it. So it's a clear machlokes between the Rambam and the Ri, or Rabenu Tam.
And we go according to Rabenu Tam.
What we're going to see.
The Sfardim actually go like that.
We're going to see that in the Sfardim itself, there's a bit of a back and forth.
Is Rabenu Tam the first person to say this? That you two Shehecheyanu?
In fact, it seems like it's a debate of the Ashkenazim and the Sfardim. However, look at number 5 for a second. Number 5 is the commentary of the Magid Mishnah. The Magid Mishnah, a student of the Rashba, he passes away in around the year 1340. He's the main commentary in the Rambam. So look at number 5. The Magid Mishnah says 2 things which are important. He says, Kosav Rabenu, he says, you'll notice the Rambam writes, Shekivan Shabidach Balayla Shechir, since you made Shehecheyanu at night, you don't repeat it by day. Where does Rambam get it from? By Sukkah. Shekivan shebidach zaman balal. If you make a Shehecheyanu the night of Sukkot, you don't make a Shehecheyanu the next day. Ein mevarach b'yom. Once the mitzvah comes your way, you made a Shehecheyanu, you did it. Now we're going to see if that raya is a good raya or not.
But you do make it on the $1 minimum.
Okay, fine. It's a new mitzvah. It's a different mitzvah. But not in the same sukkah. Not in the same sukkah. Avo yeshim mefarshim, some mefarshim write sheikar hakriya hi b'yom, that the main reading is by day, and therefore afal pisha birchs mambala, even though you benched at night, choyz mevarcha b'yom, which is Tosfos. And then he says v'chein no gubar tzeisenu. He lived in Spain. The Magid Mishnah is saying in Spain we actually follow Tosfos. Even though the Ri and Rabenu Tam live in France, they're the Chachmei Tzarfatim, they're Ashkenazim. So the Magid Mishnah here says 2 things. Number 1, he says where the Rambam gets it from. He compares it to Sukkah. Just like you make a Shehecheyanu the night of Sukkot, the Shehecheyanu goes both on the Yom Tov and the Sukkah. And therefore, when you sit there the next day, by day, you eat your Yom Tov meal. You don't make a new Shehecheyanu on the Sukkah, you're already there. So too, there's no reason to repeat Shehecheyanu on the Megillah. But says the Magid Mishnah, Tosfos disagrees, and the minhag by us in Spain is to go like Tosfos.
We could time on the Rambam that he could have agreed that you make Shehecheyanu on a Sudas Purim and Shalchmanos.
We'll see if anybody holds that. Hold on, we'll get there.
It's a separate mitzvah, so it's not.
Okay, but we're going to back to mitzvah doiraisa.
Yeah, but you do Shehecheyanu on
mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Okay, but we're going to see. So there's a Magen Avraham about this, and there's a Yankiv Emden, and there's a Mishnah Brura. It's all here. It's all. Do not worry. Everything for your consumption. If you look in, but you'll see. So even by the Sfardim, wait a second. The Rambam says you don't. The Magid Mishnah says we do. Even amongst the Ashkenazim was very unclear. I said the Rosh is big time like this Rabenu Tam. The Rosh quotes many rayas that Tosfos doesn't even say. The Rosh says the very fact that in the Mishnayos and Megillah it speaks about the Megillah of the day, and the Mishnayos never speaks of the Megillah of the night, is clear proof that the main reading is the day reading. Fact. So the Rosh is very much supporting this din of the Ri and the Rabenu Tam. If you look in the Mordechai, now the Mordechai was the Mordechai, he was Ashkenazi too. The Mordechai was a friend of the Rosh. The 2 of them are students of the Maram of Rottenburg. The Mordechai writes that the Rashbam, who was the brother of Rabenu Tam, held like the Rambam. So the Rashbam holds you don't do it. The Rashbam holds you don't do it. That's what the Mordechai quotes. And if you look in number 3 is the Ramah in his Sefer Darchei Moshe on the tour. He quotes the Mordechai. Kosav, the Mordechai writes in Perkama de Megillah that the Maram of Rottenburg would make the Shehecheyanu quietly. A third opinion. Toich sha'akal hoyo oinin amen, while the congregation was saying amen to the second bracha of Shas Nisim, the Maram of Rothenburg would throw in a Shehecheyanu, lafuki midei kol rabvasa, in order to cover all bases. Now that's very strange. When it comes to a bracha, if you're not sure if you say it, you don't make it.
Right.
We're going to see Shehecheyanu is different. Shehecheyanu, the Gemara says in Eidavin, is a reshus. Shehecheyanu, there are times where it depends on your feeling. You can make it if you want, and it's not a bracha of Atola. We're going to see more about this from the Tzemach Tzedek.
All the Chagim, they're biblical. You only say Shehecheyanu
On the Yom Tov,
first
yeah,
time. And
yeah.
this is not a biblical.
This is not on the Chag, this is on the mitzvah.
No, I understand, but
Right.
I mean, it's like you're elevating it above every other holiday when if you're going to
It's the
say
mitzvah.
Shehecheyanu every time.
On the mitzvah.
Even the mitzvah, you don't say it twice. So
You know
You
what?
say- you
You
say
and the
Sheh-
Rambam are in good company. But now we're seeing that hold on.
You say Shehecheyanu on a new thing.
Right, Shehecheyanu, you said on new.
but not
No, but it's not. The Ratosis holds the
Not to be
Megilah
right.
of day is like a new Megilah reading. It's not the same as the nighttime. It's a whole new kettle of fish. It's
But
a whole
the holiday
new.
always starts at night.
It's not the holiday. The Shehecheyanu. We're going to see if Purim itself needs a Shehecheyanu on the holiday. It's the mitzvah of Megilah.
I think it's a little bit.
We're going to see. Hold up. We're going to see if Purim itself warrants a holiday, or if the mitzvahs warrant a holiday. But right now we're referring to Megillah Esther,
Okay.
which definitely does warrant a Shehecheyanu one time. The Gemara says clearly. The Shaila is the second time. So the Maram of Rothenburg would say it quietly. Now the Maram of Rothenburg, he's Mr. Ashkenaz, living in Ashkenaz. Like, why is he worried about the Rambam? Because within the Chachmei Ashkenaz itself, the Rashbam, there was a debate of two brothers, Rashbam and Rabenu Tam. Rashbam said no, Rabenu Tam said yeah. So Maram of Rothenburg's like, I'll do it quietly. But he didn't instantly, no one else in the shul did it, just the rabbi himself. It's like the Rebbe would do certain things, say Akdamas quietly, certain things himself. So you already see the Maram of Rothenburg did a similar thing. He would throw in the Shehecheyanu himself. And the Ramah continues, V'cheinu b'Hagoyis Maimonides. The Hagoyis Maimonides is also a student of the Maram of Rothenburg, also a Kohen. He and the Mordechai were both murdered in the Rindfleisch massacres in 1298 in Germany. So both the Hagoyis Maimonides and the Mordechai both quote that their Rebbe, the Maram of Rothenburg, would say it quietly. And then the Ramah finishes, by the way, the Magid Mishnah is the opposite. Although he's a Sfardi, he says that b'Mekayim in his place, Nagul Levarach Af B'Yom. So you have some Ashkenazim saying yes, some Ashkenazim saying no. And by the Sfardim as well, the Rambam says no, the Magid Mishnah says yeah. Now the Ramah finishes V'chein Onu Noigin. The Ramah's last words are, we say it. We say it. Okay? Now the Ramah is writing this on the Tur. What does the Tur himself say? Look at number 7. The Tur. So the Tur is the son of the Rosh, always goes like his father. Not here. The Tur says in number 7, the cost of Rabenu Tamzal, that af b'yoyim, even by day, it's tzarech levarach Shehecheyanu, because ikir mitzvahs kriyas b'yoyim, the main readings by day. V'Rambam zal kosav ein mevarach Shehecheyanu, you don't do it. Adoni Avi, my father, the Rosh Sal, Hiskim, he agrees to Rabenu Tam. But ve'ein noigin kain, says the Tur, we don't do it. Now the Tur did live in Spain at the end when he wrote this, but nonetheless he's not documenting Minhagei Sfarad. The Tur documents Minhagei Ashkenaz. So the Tur is saying, now the Tur doesn't bring a debate to Rabenu Tam and the Rashbam. If you read the Tur, it seems like Rabenu Tam and the Rosh say you do it, the Rambam says you don't, and the Tur comments that actually the minig is like the Rambam. Which is strange. Why is that the minig? The Tur, why would he not have the custom of his father? See, if he would have quoted Rashbam, it would make more sense that the Tur is saying it's not just a debate of Ashkenazim and Sfardim. Even amongst Ashkenazim, it's not Pashut. And my father's teacher, the Maram of Rothenburg, would say it quietly, but didn't make it the minig of his shul. It would make more sense why the Tur would finish off. You know what? The minig is not to do it. But the Tur only presents it as a debate between Ashkenazim and the Sfardim. His father and Rabenu Tam against the Rambam. Very strange why the minig tak is not to do it. But the Tur is documenting the Ashkenazi minig, although he lived in Spain. He lived in Spain because his father, after the Maram of Rothenburg was taken captive in the end of the 1200s, his student, the Rosh, knew they were coming after him next, so he fled with his family from Spain. He went south, from Germany, They went south to Spain, and he went to Barcelona where the Rashba was Rav, and the two of them spent a week together behind closed doors. And the Rashba says, you know what? I'm going to get you a job. The Rashba calls Toledo. Toledo had no Rav, was Ravless. And he got the Rosh a job in Toledo. And so the Tur ultimately ends up living in Spain, but he's not documenting Minhag Sfard, he's documenting Minhag Ashkenaz. It's just so strange. If all the Ashkenazim say to do it, but no, the Minhag is not. So you have the Tur saying the Minhag Ashkenaz is not to do it. The Maggid Mishnah is saying in Spain we do it, right? The Maggid Mishnah is saying in Spain we do it despite the Rambam. The Tur is saying in Ashkenaz we don't, despite Rabenu Tam and the Rosh. It's mamish like mamish v'nafach backwards. In fact, it gets even better. If you look at the Bach on the Tur, it's not on the paper. The Bach writes the minhag is to say Shehecheyanu. That's the minhag Ashkenaz. If you look in Shulchan Aruch, you'll find it's a debate between Rabbi Yosef Kaira and the Ramah. Rabbi Yosef Kaira, of course, goes with the Rambam, no Shehecheyanu. The Ramah writes, we make Shehecheyanu. Just like he wrote in number 3, which is his background sefer, the Darchei Moshe, which he wrote on the Tur. He says we do it. Hitaka comments that in the Shulchan Aruch. We write it. We do it. If you look at number 8, you have the Levush. The Levush is a student of the Ramah, and the Levush writes in number 8, "Ulakach, you should make Shehecheyanu by day, like the Ramah." In brackets, he says, by the way, in Posum where I live, we don't do it. So although the Levush Paskins Yeshud, he says, by the way, in Posum we don't make the Shehecheyanu by day.
Why does the Ramah in his sefer on the Tur say we do it?
And Shulchan Aruch as well, he says we do it.
No, that's his halacha.
Right.
But why don't you keep it in your halacha place, not in your place where you're discussing the Tur?
No. It's a critique on the Tur as well.
It's a critique.
Well, it's with all due respect. In other words, he's right. That was his original sefer that he. Just like Rabbi Yosef Kaira first wrote on the Tur the Beis Yosef, and he argued so much, so he made his own Shulchan Aruch. So the Ramah similarly, yeah. Although the Ramah much more seldom argues on the Tur because they're both Ashkenazim. Rabbi Yosef Kaira is left, right, and center. Is different than the Tur. But anyways, okay. So it's like this funniest thing. This thing's dancing around back and forth. The Vilna Gaon did not make Shehecheyanu by day. And the Alter Rebbe writes in his Siddur not to do it. The Alter Rebbe, that's not the end, no, it's not it. The Alter Rebbe writes in his Siddur, the Alter Rebbe says, don't make Shehecheyanu by day. His grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, says, you do. It kept on going back and forth.
I like that.
Look at number 6. We have a comment to the Magen Avraham in number 6. He's going on the V'Shehecheyanu. Again, in Shulchan Aruch, which the Magen Avraham is going on, it's a debate between Rabbi Yosef Kaira, who goes like the Rambam, versus the Ramah, who goes like Tosfos. Says the Magen Avraham, V'yechaven bebircha Shehecheyanu, you should have in mind by the bracha, Gamken also al mitzvahs, al mishleach manas, sorry. When you make Shehecheyanu, you should have in mind the Shalach Manas and the Sudas Purim. What about Matanos Levyonim? There's a major machlokes if the Shehecheyanu actually goes to Matanos Levyonim. Many hold Matanos Levyonim is just a mitzvah of tzedakah. So you do it every day of your life. It's not a new mitzvah. But the Pri Megadim holds that it does go in Matanos Levyonim. But if you notice that the Magen Avraham doesn't quote it, Shehem Gam Kein mitzvahs. He's quoting the Shalah. So the Shalah says that when you make Shehecheyanu, you should have in mind to cover the other mitzvahs of the day, namely Mishleach Manas and the Suda. Now says the Magen Avraham, which Shehecheyanu, venerally it seems to me, the Yichav is that when should you have this in mind? Bebircha Shehecheyanu Diyom, when you make it by day. Why? Because these mitzvahs are done by day. So the Shalah didn't say clearly which one. Magen Avraham said it's the day one. So what do you see from this Magen Avraham? He says you should make it by day. The Alter Rebbe always goes like the Magen Avraham. Over here, the Ramah says you make the Shehecheyanu by day. The Magen Avraham says you should do it. Why did the Alter Rebbe put in the Siddur that you shouldn't?
Because he didn't want to elevate it.
Because the Levush says in Posen they don't do it. Because the Tur said we don't do it, but the Ramah argued and finished. The Ramah and the Magen Avraham say you do it by day. You do it. Continues the Magen Avraham venerally. What if someone doesn't have a Megilah? Lo yevarach Shehecheyanu. Don't make a Shehecheyanu or Mishleach Manas in the Suda, because it's davar hanog b'chol yom. Because it's something you do every day. You always give people gifts. You always have a Suda. And b'chol Shabbos v'Yom Tov, the haloi tiknu klal bracha aleim. I guess every meal you have on Shabbos and Yom Tov, there's no bracha on the Suda, even though it's a mitzvah, because you have Sudas every day. So you don't make a Shehecheyanu just on the Sud and the Shalach Manas. But when you make Shehecheyanu Megilah, you have in mind that.
Shalach Manas is
What?
Shalach Manas is not something every day.
Yeah, well, you don't give people, you don't.
Invite them over your
Can I
house.
offer you a piece of cake?
Similar.
Look at number 9. In number 9, you have from the Rebbe Zeder, the Shar HaKoilel. The Shar HaKoilel was a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, and he writes like this, number 9. He says, he's going on the fact that the Alter Rebbe says in the Siddur not to make a Shehecheyanu by day. He says, "V'zeh mikorav nitfusu piskei dinim ma'ad mebal Tzemach Tzedek zal." I just got a copy of a sefer that Tzemach Tzedek called Piskei Dinim. The cost of Shom, it's written there. The Tzemach Tzedek writes, "Afapi, even though Eina Kedai, who am I to argue in my Zeder? Ach Toiri, but no, I have to study. Umasik, and the Tzemach Tzedek concludes, Lu Yehei Elas Feker de Dinner, even if it's a 50-50, if the day Megilah needs a Shehecheyanu, you're allowed to make Shehecheyanu. Because Bebircha Shehecheyanu Einoi Oiver Aloi Sisa, K'mo Shekasav Atur Hilchos Pesach Sim Tov Lamed Beis. B'Shem Baal Ho'iter. When it comes to other brachas, if you stam say it in vain, the Rambam holds it's over one of the Seres HaDibros saying Hashem's name in vain. Rabenu Tam disagrees, fine. But when it comes to Shehecheyanu, everyone agrees if you're excited about making Shehecheyanu, there is no bracha levatala by Shehecheyanu. So therefore, it's a win-win. Umistabra, because there's also in Hilchos Pesach by B'dikas Chametz, a whole shad, you make a Shehecheyanu by B'dikas Chametz, and there it's brought that, well, what do you lose? Do it. Because if you don't have to, it's still, it's not levatala. Umistabra d'Rishusu, says Tzemach Tzedek, it makes sense that it's optional. The Gemara in Eruvin says about by a new fruit, Shehecheyanu is optional by a new fruit. The Rishonim have a big debate what that means. Does it mean that if you have a new fruit, it's optional whether you eat it or not, but if you do, you have to make Shehecheyanu? Others say no, even if you eat it, it's optional to make the bracha. It's Rishus. V'chein hoichiach be'el yerabba, fine. Look at the next line. So that's the Tzemach. The Tzemach Tzedek wants to say you should make the Shehecheyanu. Says the Shara Koilel, this is the Rebbe Zeder. V'nei b'sharei tefillah, in my earlier sefer, the gates on tefillah, kasafti, ein l'shanas, don't change from what the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur. In other words, that the Tzemach Tzedek, he says, I thought that Tzemach Tzedek wasn't really arguing, he was discussing the idea. He wasn't saying, fact, go against Tzemach Tzedek was discussing that I have a question, I would say different. But not that bottom line, you should act different than the Alter Rebbe. He says, but then I found out that no, that Tzemach Tzedek meant business. Hinig, he made the minig to make the bracha by day Shehecheyanu. And that they found in a manuscript of the Tzemach Tzedek on a Siddur, on the Siddur, the Tzemach Tzedek writes that we do it. She said, but how could that be? The Tzemach Tzedek is arguing the Alter Rebbe. Mistama eine choyle kal moires. It doesn't make sense, he's arguing. So it must be, you have to know what the Alter Rebbe meant. He says, Vadai, the Alter Rebbe also meant you do it. He said you don't. Masha Kosav Admar Azok, when the Alter Rebbe says not by day, what he means is like this. Hainu, Shelabircha Shehecheyanu B'yoim Ein Hechreach from Gemara from Kabbalah Sarizal. When the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur says don't make a Shehecheyanu, he meant to say that there's no backing to make a Shehecheyanu. There's no source, there's no proof. It's not an official... it's not mandated, but ein zeh shaykh lepiskei siddur hazeh. And the Alter Rebbe says, I'm not going to say you have to do it because there is no kabbalistic or halachic backing for it. Umikol makom lemaisa, but if you want to know, I'm sure the Alter Rebbe actually did it. Ma'achas, since takada by Shehecheyanu, there's no loy sisa, there's no name of Hashem in vain. It's a bracha of rishus. So Maharoi Lot says you should do it. You should bench Shehecheyanu by day. Or befrat that it's only one guy making the bracha and everyone listens. So what he's saying is, since the Tzemach Tzedek must not have argued in the Alter Rebbe, it must be the Alter Rebbe didn't mean what he wrote. The Alter Rebbe's lashon is that not to make the Shehecheyanu by day. Could you pass me the siddur to get to the exact lashon?
Yeah, why is it so difficult to argue against the Zeder?
The Alter Rebbe's lashon is Alter Rebbe says, "Ein mevorchen Shehecheyanu except at night, not by day." And underneath it says, we do make Shehecheyanu by day. That was inserted from the Tzemach Tzedek.
Right.
The line above where it says, we don't make it except by night, not by day. Says the Shara Koil, what it means is that it's not legislated to do it by day. It's a bit of a deichik reading.
And I was asking, why is it so difficult?
The Tzemach Tzedek would argue?
Yeah, look, but we're in town this all the time, right? That's right.
The Tzemach Tzedek was a chassid of his Zayda. Rabbeinu Tam wasn't a chassid of Rashi. Rabbeinu Tam once said that Rashi's commentary on Chumash, I could never duplicate myself. His commentary on Gemara I could have done, but not the commentary on Chumash. That's too perfect. Couldn't have done it. But the Tzemach Tzedek was a chassid. There are a few times the Tzemach Tzedek disagrees without, but even then, each time, like you say, Mizmer L'Soida on Erev Yom Kippur. The Alter Rebbe says not to. The Tzemach Tzedek said to.
What do we do? It's not like here where it says that you...
Right, so there, because the Tzemach Tzedek was saying in theory, wasn't actually...
Right.
Doesn't the Alter Rebbe said at the end of his life, if you that on Shabbos you don't have to wash. If you have mezainis, since in the Alamicha you mentioned Shabbos, it's good enough for a meal. And the Tzemach Tzedek vehemently disagreed, but the Tzemach Tzedek, he disagrees on the idea. It doesn't quote what the Alter Rebbe said. Even the Alter Rebbe never said. Alter Rebbe's brother, Rabbi Yehuda Leib, says at the end of my brother's life, I heard my brother say, you could just have mezainis for a meal.
Right.
The Tzemach Tzedek has a whole discussion destroying such a theory, but not quoting the Alter Rebbe.
Right.
And there's a big debate. Does that mean Tzemach Tzedek's arguing and didn't want to quote his Zayda out of respect? No. The Tzemach Tzedek had a chassid, Reb Shner Zalman Fradkin, the big genius, a Torah's chesed. And there was a certain issue where he paskined against the Tzemach Tzedek. And someone told him, I read your tshuva, you don't quote the Tzemach Tzedek at all. And he said, because in this Indian I have to paskin against the Rebbe, and therefore I didn't want to quote him. I didn't want to quote him, and then, so I just left him out. So the question, anyway, so there's a few cases where this comes up. You see from the Shara Koil, he does not entertain the possibility that Tzemach Tzedek would argue on the Zayda.
I mean, from a point of hashkafa, is there an Indian of Amish not arguing against a Rebbe?
Is there an issue being choylek al hashchina? I don't know. Many people argue with God. I argue with God all the time. He wants to give me X amount of money. I say I need more. I argue with him all the time. I argue with him all the time. Exactly, yeah.
Some Erevin also disagrees with that.
Okay, yeah, so fine. There's a number of places. The Koyanim, when you turn around to bench, which way do you turn? You're facing east and you face towards west. You go north.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was also debate there. Do you go north way or the south way?
Who said what?
Tzemach Tzedek said to go north. Does everyone turn to the north?
Yeah. Turn to
Okay,
the right.
fine. All right, fine. Okay.
To the north.
You're facing
that
there,
way.
you're turning to your
turn
left.
right. No,
Well,
you turn north
Because
and
when
then
you
turn
do a
around.
mitzvah, you
So
start
going
with
to
the
your left.
yin.
You're going
Hey, to your left, to the
Right,
right
right,
of the... okay.
Fine.
When you do a mitzvah, you start
See,
with
here's the thing. What we want to discuss this for a couple of minutes is,
So
that this is like this incredible Purim, this Purim thing. Back and forth, back and forth. You know, even Rabbi Yankiv Emden in his Siddur, he writes, there's two opinions. Some say yes, some say no. It was such confusion. The Vilna Gaon didn't do it. So, what exactly is the debate of the Rambam and Tosfos? So, and okay, we're going to do this very quickly. Okay, let's go.
This is
So,
the time.
well, we started late, but no, I want to do this quickly.
No, that's the
We're going to explore a couple of things. Geschmack, thing, we'll do it briefly. In number 10, this is the Mishnah Brura who quotes a comment of Rabbi Yankiv Emden, okay? Look at number 10, Shehecheyanu. He says, this is the Mishnah Brura's, it's his commentary called Bir Halacha. I and see the Mishnah Brura, what I quoted. The Yesh Omim you should make a Shehecheyanu. Rabbi Yankiv Emden holds if you don't have a Megilah, you do make a Shehecheyanu on the other mitzvahs or on the day of Purim. It's from Meruk Tzia, that's Yankiv Emden. Shehisig, he argues in the Magen Avraham, V'zeh L'shaynai. Let's have a look at Yankiv Emden for a moment. It's okay, we can. V'lo yadaiti, I don't get a ma'bekach shudor. Who cares that you give Shalach Manos other days of the year? Haloi belav mitzvahs Shalach Manos v'sud the royal v'rch zman alayim. Says Yankiv Emden, do you know why if you don't have a Megillah Do you know why I think you should make a Shehecheyanu on the mitzvahs? Because you can make a Shehecheyanu on the day itself. Doesn't Purim demand a Shehecheyanu today? The day is only from Nevi'im. It's not biblical. It's from Divrei Kabbalah. It needs a chizuk k'shel Torah, but it should be substantiated like a biblical thing. Because the miracle, the kivan de mizman l'zman ka'asi, since it's a special day that comes from time to time, it's like all Moedei Hashem. It's like all the Yom Tovim that we ben Shehecheyanu. And Shehecheyanu doesn't even need a kais. Halachically, you can make Shehecheyanu afilu b'shuk, even in the marketplace. And Yom Kippur, which doesn't have food and drink, only that you refrain from work, you make a Shehecheyanu. Or Messiah, Rabbi Yankov Emden says, the Shapir l'chatchila demand the leis leila Megilah l'mismich zman akais tesuda. Yankov Emden says, if you don't have a Megilah, then you make a Shehecheyanu by the mill. You pick up a cup of wine, and you make a Shehecheyanu and a Bera Priyagofen. That's the opinion of Yankov Emden. Okay, so he obviously disagreed with his Magen Avraham. Magen Avraham said, but you'd make a meal every day. Frek Yankov Emden, what meal? Shema meal. The day itself warrants a Shehecheyanu. Chanukah doesn't, it's only rabbinic, but Purim is from Nevi'im. It's called Divrei Kabbalah. In certain aspects, it's biblical, light biblical, and therefore he says you make a Shehecheyanu. So look at number 11, is the Mishnah Brura says, I b'chlal don't understand what Yankov Emden is attacking the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham is talking about someone, if you have a Megilah by day, you make a Shehecheyanu, and it covers the other mitzvahs. If you don't have a Megilah by day, don't make a Shehecheyanu on the other mitzvahs. He's talking about someone who already made Shehecheyanu the night before. So he already made on the day. Yankov is talking about someone who has no Megilah b'chlal over Purim. They're talking about apples and oranges. Look at number 11. The Gamal Etzem Tumiyosai on the Yankov Emden's Pella, the Tom and the Magen Avraham. Yeah. Look at the next line. Loy Eid, I don't know what Yankov Emden is screaming about. I mean, the guy likes to scream, with all due respect. But it could be the Magen Avraham agrees to this. The Magen Avraham is talking about someone who had a Megillah at night and he benched. And therefore the Shehecheyanu covered the day. The Magen Avraham is talking about by daytime, if you have a Megillah, the Shehecheyanu should cover the mitzvahs. If you don't have a Megillah, don't make Shehecheyanu the mitzvahs. Either day, you made the night before. That's the which means what the Mishnah Brura is saying is that it could be the Magen Avraham would agree if you had no Megillah at all, the day warrants Shehecheyanu. Oh. So based on this, someone will explain, you know what the debate of the Rambam and Tosfos is? Tosfos hold that Shehecheyanu is going on the Megillah, the mitzvah of the Megillah. And since by day there's more Pesumei Nissa, so the reading is a greater reading. It's not a repetition, it's a different kettle of fish. So the new greatness that comes with the mitzvah, it's a new quality mitzvah. It's not the same as what you had the night before. It requires Shehecheyanu. But the Rambam may hold the Shehecheyanu that you make on the night is going on the Yom Tov of Purim. It's going on the day. You don't make it the moment Purim sets in, you make it by the Megillah. That's a good time to make the Shehecheyanu, but it's going on the day. And therefore there will be no reason to make a Shehecheyanu again the next day. Right? That's how some learn, Pashat the Machlekes. That the Rambam says, Taka, Purim warrants a Shehecheyanu. When you make it at night, it's not going on the Megillah. You make it then because it's appropriate. Cover the Megillah too. But it's really going on the 24-hour period. So the next morning you make a new Shehecheyanu, you already made a Shehecheyanu on the Yom Tov.
It's on the Megilah, like the Lulav.
But the Tosfos, so he holds, Tosfos holds it's going on the mitzvah. And because by day the Mikra Megilah is a whole different kettle of fish, it's a greater mitzvah, warrant a new Shehecheyanu. That's one option of how to explain the debate. You don't like it? Okay. So we have more to offer. Look at the next page. The next page is, first of all, he quotes, there's a Rabbi Yosef Engel in number 12. Rabbi Yosef Engel in his commentary on Gemara on the Tosfos says, in the third line of number 12, I found in the Roikeach in the Laws of Bracha, Siman Shin Samach Gimel, in the end of the Sefer, he writes like this, he says, opposite of Tosfos, the Iker reading is at night. Even though you have to read it again by day, the main thing is at night. And that's why you say Al Mikra and not Loy. You don't say Likra, you say Al Mikra. Why? The Merekeh holds, when do you say Al, when do you say Le? When do you say Al and when do you say Le? So the Rishonim have many different theories of how you apply one or how you apply the other. The Rekeach is of the opinion that when the mitzvah has duration, you make lu. That it's going, when you do it and you get it over and done with, you make al. So says the Rekeach, if the main Megillah was by day, so when you start at night, you're just like beginning the mitzvah, and the real thing is come, you would make lu. But since the main thing is at night, so you're about to get the mitzvah over and done with, you say al. So he says the main Mikra Megillah is at night, the opposite of Taisus. So maybe the Rambam holds that. Maybe the Rambam Poshet holds, like the Rekeach, that the main reading is at night. So he agrees to Taisus that the Shehecheyanu is on the mitzvah. But he says the main one was at night. That's an option. We saw the Magid Mishnah gave a third option. The Magid Mishnah holds that the Rambam could say that maybe night and day are equal. But why would you repeat the Shehecheyanu? Just like by Sukkah. You make a Shehecheyanu the night of Sukkot, you don't make it the next day. That was the Raya the Magid Mishnah brought. The Beis Yosef brings it as well. That Raya is very troublesome. Because when it comes to Sukkah, the main mitzvah is actually at night, not by day. The Gemara says we make a Gzeda Shava the 15th of the month and the 15th of the month, that just like one has to eat a kazayis of matzah the first night Pesach, you have to have a kazayis of bread in the sukkah the first night sukkahs. You can't shirk the responsibility. Many Rishonim hold even if it's raining, you have to eat in the sukkah. By day, the sukkah is not screaming, eat in me. By day, you have to have a meal because it's Yom Tov. And on sukkahs, you can't eat outside the sukkah. By night, the sukkah itself as a chiv, you have to eat in me, and finished. Many Rishonim hold even if it's raining. Others hold fakert if it's raining, you're potter, and therefore you have to wait till it stops and come in afterwards. By day, if it's raining, you can eat in the house, halachically. And when it stops raining, why would you go outside? You already had your Yom Tov Sukkah. There's no Indian that the Sukkah demands. So the Magid Mishnah is saying that if you make a Shehecheyanu the night of Sukkot, you don't repeat it by day. Of course not. The main mitzvah is at night. That would only make sense if the Rambam holds like the Rekeach, that the main Megilah is at night, and then you can compare. But if the Rambam would say that by Megilah they're equal, or for sure if he would hold like Tosafos that by day is the main thing, there's no way the Magid Mishnah could marshal the Raya from Sukkah. If the Rambam would hold that by night and by day are equal mitzvahs though, then I would say even without the Magid Mishnah's Raya, it makes sense not to repeat Shehecheyanu. There's nothing new.
You have to say by day is more.
The question is, could the Rambam agree with Tosafos that by day is the main reading and nonetheless hold there's no new Shehecheyanu? Because Tosafos brought many Rayas, and if you look in the Rosh, he brings 3 or 4 other Rayas as well, that by day is the main reading. The Rosh brings a famous Raya from the villagers. The villagers, right, who couldn't read Megillah in their own villages because there was no one who knew how to, they would go into the bigger towns on Mondays and Thursdays. So they're allowed to read Megillah the Monday, Thursday preceding Purim. But they're only coming by day. They don't read by night. So all the Rishonim want to know, what happened to the night Megillah? And the Rosh said it's very simple. The main reading is by day, and that's what we're concerned about. There's so many rayas to this idea, so the question is, does the Rambam, how does the Rekeach says the main reading is at night? Like, how will he measure up? How will he defend all these rayas? I don't know. The question is, could the Rambam agree to every argument, Tyson, and say, yes, you're right. You could bring me 20 proofs the main reading is by day. But still, there's no Shehecheyanu. Could he hold that? Well, if the defense is from the Magid Mishnah about Sukkah, you would say not. From Sukkah, of course you don't make Shehecheyanu again by day. The main one there is at night. But here, if it's the flip, you should make a new Shehecheyanu. So years ago, about 14 years ago, I wrote an essay about this, developing the following theory. That we know when it comes to mitzvahs of Chanukah, mitzvahs of Megillah, there is the actual mitzvah that you do, and then there's the Pirsumei Nisa element, the fact that you're publicizing the miracle. You light the candles, you do it in a way that publicizes the miracle. You read the Megillah, you do it in a way that publicizes the miracle. There's 2 ways of looking at this. One way is there's 2 elements of the mitzvah. There's the mitzvah itself, and then there's you should do it in a way of Pirsumei Nisa. Option number 2 is the whole mitzvah is about publicizing the miracle. Pirsumei Nisa is not just the dress up, it's the soul of the mitzvah itself. And the theory was like this. Tosfos holds that the Pirsumei Nisa is the soul of the entire Megillah reading. The whole purpose is to publicize the miracle. Since by day there's more publicity, the whole mitzvah is expanded. The essence of the mitzvah is expanded. Whereas the Rambam holds, no, there's a mitzvah read the Megillah. The fashion of how you do it is in a way of publicity. So by day there's more publicity, you've only expanded the exterior of the mitzvah. The essence is the same. Why would you make a new Shehecheyanu? That was the theory that I wrote about. And I saw that the Rogatchover says the exact opposite. The exact opposite. You know, there was once a Rav in Poland who said about a certain swindler that the guy is so devious that even the opposite of what he says is also a lie. The guy is such a shakran that even fakert is also not true. So at least over here I wasn't so bad, because at least the opposite is taka true. The Rogatchover writes this in number 14. The Rogatchover wants to say that we'll read it, number 14. This mitzvah of Pirsum, the Rogatchover says like this. There's 2 elements. There's the mitzvah of reading, and then there's the Pirsumei Nisa. He says this mitzvah of Pirsum has to be in public. Im kara b'yachid, if you read it alone, after Yotze, even though you do the mitzvah, l'didan, which it's okay, we help you paskin that way. Mikol makom, it could be that for Pirsumei Nisa, you have to read it again in public. Says the Rogatchover, there's 2 parts of the mitzvah. There's the reading and then there's the Pirsumei Nisa. Alone, you only have the reading. Says Rogatchover, it could be, if you read it alone, you may be obligated to reread it again in public, to listen in public, to get the Pirsumei Nisa aspect. There's 2. So the Rogatchover says like this, according to Tosfos, there's 2 distinct elements. At night, you don't really get the Pirsumei Nisa. Only by day. You're making the Shehecheyanu on the new guest that came, which is the Pirsumei Nisa. The exact opposite of what I wanted to say. And he continues like this. In the 5th line, V'hine legabe yoyim haknisa, he says, when it comes to reading the Monday and Thursday before, the reading loy have, it's only because of Pirsum. When the villagers read it early, they don't get the actual mitzvah of reading, only the publicity. V'loy mishum mitzvah's kriya, because the mitzvah doesn't begin yet. That's why they don't do it at night. Says the Rogatchover, he makes all the pieces of the puzzle. He says, why do the villagers not read it at night? They go the Monday, Thursday before, they read by day. Because there's 2 elements. There's the Megilah and then there's the Pirsum. When you read it early, there's only the Pirsum. Pirsum's only by day, not at night. So there's no reason to read at night. And then he says, look in the line that starts with the word B'Gemara. Lefizi, he says, by day you have Pirsumei Nisa. So there's a new mitzvah, which is Pirsum. There's a new guest. That's why you make Shehecheyanu, not like the Rambam. So why does the Rambam hold you don't make? So the Rogatchover throws in a new theory. He says there's something called Megillah's Tainus. During the second Beis HaMikdash, there were a group of days which were holidays, you couldn't fast, and these days were special days. But after the destruction of second Beis HaMikdash, all of those days became, we're in exile. Those days are pretty much not kept anymore. He says at the end, he thinks that real Pirsumei Nisa has become bottled because of that in the world of the Rambam, and therefore the Rambam holds that when the day Megillah comes, there's no new guest. Because there is no real publication of the miracle anymore. Now they're in exile, and therefore there's no real new element to make Shehecheyanu on. Okay, I just brought that because he says the exact opposite of my theory. It's a whopper what he says, to say at night there's no Pirsumei Nisa, and to say that the Rambam in theory would agree make a new Shehecheyanu. It's only B'zman HaGolus you don't, because there's no real Pirsumei Nisa by day. All of these are wonderful theories, but it's not the mainstream approach. What is the mainstream approach over here?
What is the end where he says, Rak Gabi Chanukah Purim?
Because by Megillah's Tainus, all those days were kind of forgotten, except for Chanukah and Purim, we still commemorate. But he says that's only the mitzvah element. It could be the Pirsum element was bottled. That's what he says. And that's why when the Megillah by day comes, says the Rambam, why would you make a new Shehecheyanu? Now, so what's Tosfos going to hold? Okay, he doesn't flesh everything out. He feels like he gave us enough information and break your head. But there's a lot of new things over here. Lots of new things, new ideas. If you look in Yosef Engel in number 13, the Rogatchover's contemporary, Rabbi Yosef Engel has a different theory. Said Rabbi Yosef Engel, brilliant. He says, look in Taisus that the Kriyas Megilah by day is the main. V'yesh lo'emer gamken. You know what the reason is? Why don't we say Halal on Purim? So the Gemara Megilah gives a few explanations. One of them is the reading of the Megilah is halal. Now you don't say halal at night, b'chlal, except for night of Pesach. Says Yosef Engel, that means the Megilah by day also has the halal element. That's why it's the main reading. He says, Kivan de yesh gam chiv halal b'Purim. There's a chiv to say halal, and halal is always by day, right? But the Gemara says the reading of the Megilah is your halal. So then the Kriyas Megilah is better than by night. Now I get why. The Yesh Ba Pishnaim, because it has a double benediction. It has Megilah plus Halal, because the reading is the Halal. Mashenkin at night, it's just reading the Megilah, because you can't say Halal at night. So Yosef Engel's theory is that the reason that Megilah by day is greater is because it covers the Halal as well. So according to this, you could say very simple. When the Gemara in Megilah asks why you don't say Halal on Purim, one answer is the Megilah is the Halal. Another answer is you can't say Halalu Avdei Hashem, we're the servants of God, because we were still Achashverosh, the servants. Another answer is it's a miracle in Chutz La'aretz. There's different answers. Tosfos will hold like the answer the Megilah is also Halal, and Halal is never said at night, only by day. So that's why the day Megilah is partially a greater Megilah. But the Rambam could hold like the other answers, that the reason we don't say Halal because be'etzem there's no Halal on Purim, we're Chutz La'aretz, or because we're still under Achashverosh's sovereignty, and therefore the reading by day is b'chal not greater, right? So according to this thing, you also go down that path. But one last thing is like this: the Vilna Gaon has a comment. The Vilna Gaon says, "Let me tell you what's behind the Rambam. There's a law when it comes to Sukkah. Forget about the Maggid Mishnah's din, another din. There's a law when it comes to Sukkah. Really, when you build a Sukkah, you should make a bracha that Hashem said to make a Sukkah. The reason you don't, the way the Alter Rebbe explains it, is because the building of the sukkah is not the completion of the mitzvah. It's getting you in the direction of sitting. The ikar mitzvah is to sit in the sukkah. So you don't make a bracha on an action which is not the completion of the mitzvah. A general rule in the laws of brachas. But what about making Shehecheyanu when you make the sukkah? Here the Gemara says really you should make a Shehecheyanu when you make the sukkah. But again, since the main reason you're making is to sit in the sukkah, and you're going to make a Shehecheyanu when you sit in the sukkah, so make it then. When it comes to the first night of Sukkot, when you make the Shehecheyanu, it's really covering three things. It's covering the Yom Tov, it's covering the sitting of the sukkah, and this is also the long-awaited Shehecheyanu you were supposed to make when you made the sukkah. It's covering. By the way, if the first night of Sukkah taka rained, and you rely on those Rishonim that say you're allowed to eat inside, and you eat inside, right? And you made a Shehecheyanu inside for the Yom Tov, then if later on you go back outside to the sukkah, you have to make a Shehecheyanu in the sukkah. But if you're eating in the sukkah, then the Shehecheyanu covers three things: the Yom Tov, the sitting in the sukkah, and what you owed from before the making. The Gemara in Sukkah Daf Mem Vav says, what if you do make the Shehecheyanu when you're building the sukkah? Then taka, when you eat in the sukkah, you don't have to make a Shehecheyanu on the eating of the sukkah, only on the Yom Tov. And therefore, if you made a Shehecheyanu when you built the sukkah, and then the first night sukkahs you ate inside because it was raining, and then you went outside, you don't make a new Shehecheyanu on the, because in the house you made on the Yom Tov. Now you're back in the sukkah, but I made a Shehecheyanu when I made the sukkah. So says the Vilna Gaon, that means the Shehecheyanu on the making of the sukkah, patters, it exempts you on the Shehecheyanu when you sit in the sukkah, even though the making is much more trivial than the sitting. So how much more so the Shehecheyanu on the night reading should cover you for the day reading? That's how he explains the Rambam. So he learns from Sukkah, but not from the Maggid Mishnah and the Beis Yosef's raya, from the night and the day. It's from the preparation, the gabi, the sitting. That's the raya. Now that's a whopping raya. Now, if anything, the tables turn. So what's Tosfos talking? Tosfos says the main reading is by day. Zolzain, let's say you convinced me that the main reading is by day, and therefore it warrants a Shehecheyanu. How could it be greater than the Shehecheyanu when you make the sukkah for sitting in the sukkah? So the shaila is, wait a second. Maybe you could argue the opposite. Why b'chlal are you building a sukkah? in order to sit in it. It's a preparation to sit. So they're linked. But the night reading and the day reading are not linked, B'chlal. So look at the Rogat Shava number 15. It's another piece in the Rogat Shava where he says this. He says this Shaila. He says, Mavur b'Mishnah Yechayev to read by day, and Yeshua ben Levi adds at night. But Ratzon Eloymar, he says the Shaila is, are they two chiyuvim and not tolu zeh bazeh, or are they one chiyuv? He raises the question: are the night Megillah, day Megillah, two different obligations? Or it's one obligation. There's a mitzvah to learn Torah day and night. It's not two different mitzvahs. It's one mitzvah. The Rogat Shava raises this chakira: is the night Megillah and day Megillah really, two sides of the same coin, or are they two different chiyuvim? So you could say this is the shaila. If they're two different chiyuvim, so Taisus will say, "Don't bring me the Vilna Gaon's raya from making the sukkah to sitting in the sukkah." There, the two things, one's preparing to the next. So the Shehecheyanu and the preparation covers the completion. But here, what does one thing have to do with the other? On the other hand, maybe it's two sides of the same coin. So the Rogat Shava raises this very issue. But it takes me to a Sfas Emes. We'll finish with the Sfas Emes in number 16. The Sfas Emes, a very important Sfas Emes, a whopper. A big debate, him and the Chidah. Okay. The Sfas Emes wants to know, Yeshua ben Levi said you have to read at night and repeat it by day. Why did he use the words l'shanais to repeat it? And it caused confusion. Maybe it means to learn the Mishnayos. Why didn't Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi just say, you got to read it by night and day? Why did he use the word l'shanais? Why did he throw everybody off? A random word. So says it's Sfas Emes l'maskana yesh l'dayak. I have a question, number 16. Lama, why did he say l'shnaisa? Why didn't he say yechayev to read by night and day? So I would have thought that maybe the kavanah is like this. Yechayev l'kriyosah b'yoyim pam shenis. Maybe Shubal Levi meant the day reading has to be number 2. And if you didn't read at night, you have to read twice by day. Maybe the day reading has to be a second reading. It has to be a repeat. You're chayiv l'kroisa b'yoyim pam shenis. V'hainu, that means if you didn't read at night for whatever reason, you have to read by day twice. Because the pasuk, now hold on, it depends which pasuk you learn it from. If you learn it from ekra yoimam and laila loydumia, no, one by day, one by night. But the second pasuk, which was what? That he said v'lo yidum, that the second pasuk L'man yizamercha was by day, lo yidum at night. But it doesn't say clearly. Leka heichacha to read at night and by day. Only you have to read it twice. It's only the other pasuk of Ekra Yoimim, it says read it by day and by night. But the second pasuk, it says read twice. The imkain, if you didn't read by night, you have to read twice by day. And that's what l'shanoisa means. But then as I saw in the Birkei Yosef from the Chidah, I see he brings B'Shem Gadol Echad, who said that if you didn't read at night, you have to read twice by day. Like by Dav, if you miss a tefillah, you make it up. And the Chidah Dachad Dvarv, the Chidah says rubbish. The Chidah says Ein Kan Chiv Tashlumin. The Chidah says there's no Indian of reading Megillah twice. It's Megillah by night and Megillah by day. So it says the Sfas Emes Lefi Masha Kasafti, but according to what I wrote, I think this Gadol, the Chidah quote, is actually right. It's not the night that does it at all. It's just you have to read twice. The problem is, loy mashma kain b'paiskin. The problem is, he doesn't want to argue in the Chidah. No one else says this. No one said if you miss night, you got to read twice by day. So he says, I'll give you another answer why Yeshua ben Levi said l'shnaisa. The Esh, I'll tell you, pshat. The hard, the karma l'shnaisa. Do you know why I said you have to repeat it by day? Because the ikr mitzvah by day, and the reading at night is only to allow the reading by day to be the second one. Says the Sfas Emes, you know why you read by night? It's a preparation for the day. The night is only a setup to make sure the day should be number 2. And he says, therefore, he says, what if someone's from a walled city? Okay? He's from Yerushalayim. And he goes to a non-walled city the night of the 14th. Everyone's reading Megillah. He's there, he should read Megillah. But what if he's planning that before Alois HaShachar is going back to Yerushalayim? So he's and Yerushalayim, they do the 15th. So he's never going to read the 14th by day. But he's in the city the 14th at night. He said he shouldn't have to read Megillah. Because the whole purpose of the night Megillah is to set up that the day one should be the second one. It's a preparatory stage. And if you know that you're not going to be around tomorrow by day, now how could someone know this is the case? You're in a regular city, you're going to a walled city before dawn. you're not going to be reading the day Megillah by the 14th. Then you don't have to read the night. So the Sfas Emes is saying there's a real logic to say, an argument to be put forth, that the night Megillah is part of a preparation for the day. Now it's a whopper of a chiddush, but this might be the opinion of the Rambam. The Rambam will hold that the night Megillah is just setting you up for the day. And therefore the Vilna Gaon is right. You can compare it to sitting in a sukkah, that if you make the Shehecheyanu, when you build it, and it covers, when you sit in it, you see that if you make the Shehecheyanu by the preparatory, it covers the final act. So we'll extrapolate from the sukkah to the Megillah. Tosfos, though, will not agree with this, and Tosfos will say that, like the Rogatchover mentioned, that they're two completely different chiyuvim. And therefore, since the second one is a greater one, it's a new Shehecheyanu. You can't compare it to the case of the Shehecheyanu of the building of the sukkah to the sitting of the sukkah. So that's another option of how to explain the debate. The fact is, there's so many options of how to explain the debate. Maybe that's why that the debate remained open-ended.
How
What do we do? We go like the Tzemach Tzedek.
No, but how do we align the Tzemach Tzedek with the Alter Rebbe?
The Shara Koilo said he never meant to, the Alter Rebbe never meant you don't do it. He said you don't do it, didn't mean that. He was saying there's no backing.
We said before, there's no, but we
Right,
do it.
it's not
we could do
legislated,
it, but he's
but-
just saying from a
right.
halachic
Unofficially,
perspective. We don't
yeah.
have to.
Talk about Shehecheyanu.
That's not,
Yeah.
Shehecheyanu. It's not the...
And Shehecheyanu is not a bracha like other things. And
That's what the Tzemach Tzedek's argument was.
right,
So
so
you
he's
can't go
saying-
wrong.
Right.
And also you see that the Maram of Rottenburg did the same thing. He said it quietly to cover all bases. You see that you can't go wrong with the Shehecheyanu. So you wonder why the Maram of Rottenburg just make it the minig of the community.
Yeah, but Chabad does Shehecheyanu second day in the morning.
By day?
Yeah.
We do.
We do it.
It's Tzemach Tzedek, yeah.
Yeah, we do it.
The Litvishers, the Vilna Gaon didn't do it, so all those that follow him don't do it. And
One of the rare cases where the Alter Rebbe and the God came together.
exactly, yeah.
I agree.
Well, according to the Shara Koil, he thinks Alter Rebbe did do it.
Right. He said
Alter
there's no
Rebbe did-
place for it. Well, his language is a little bit.
The Alter Rebbe says, "Ein mevorchen Shehecheyanu ela b'layla." Loi b'yom. We don't do it by day. It's a bit of a forced interpretation into the words.
What about what the Alter Rebbe says about Shal Shudas?
What about?
He says that you have to have Shal Shudas.
Oh, the halacha. Yeah. Okay, but say that certain things.
What is considered shal shus? So if you make a mezainis or you eat fruit, that's considered.
No,
But
he says that you have
if you
to,
say you should, it turns out you didn't. Is different than if you say don't do it. It turns out you did.
It's interesting that the Mishabur writes about Shal Shudas. Why it's
Okay,
called Shal
Shehecheyanu.
Shudas. He says if you didn't have